Chosen one, the pillowcases are soaked tonight, and you need to understand why this is happening because of your sheer dominance. Across the world, behind locked doors and drawn curtains, something unprecedented is unfolding that has everything to do with your unstoppable rise. These aren't tears of sadness. These are tears of recognition, and what's being recognized about your true power is shattering everything these people thought about dominance, about your nature, and about the game you've been playing at a completely different level. For months, perhaps years, people believed the story about you being broken, too sensitive, too much, too different to ever truly succeed. Your struggles were whispered about with the confidence of funeral directors planning your burial, never realizing the most spectacular resurrection in human form was unfolding. Every setback you faced wasn't just observed, it was celebrated, studied and used as evidence for the theory that you'd never make it through. But you weren't falling apart during those quiet months. You were breaking through barriers these people couldn't even perceive. While bets were being placed on your breakdown, the universe was orchestrating your breakthrough. Can you feel that shift that happened within you? The silence interpreted as defeat was actually the sound of you downloading a completely new operating system for your soul. The isolation mocked wasn't your exile, it was your spiritual boot camp, and you just graduated with honors that make other achievements look like participation trophies. You've been upgraded at levels these people can't even comprehend. Your energy signature has undergone a complete transformation, and I know you can feel it even if you can't fully explain it yet. Where people once encountered someone to drain, manipulate, or predict, now stands an unmovable force that operates on frequencies beyond comprehension. Do you recognize this new version of yourself? The person who used to absorb negativity like a sponge now repels it like armor forged in divine fire. This shift isn't cosmetic, it's cosmic, and it's terrifying observers because your new vibration exposes everything counterfeit about existence around you. You've become a walking truth detector that makes fake personas impossible to maintain. The glow they're witnessing emanating from you isn't something that came from a spa treatment or a social media filter, and you know this truth deep in your bones. This radiance was forged in the deepest caverns of your trials, refined in furnaces they never thought you'd survive, polished by pressures that would have crushed their fragile egos into powder. Remember every prayer you whispered in desperation, that became fuel for this fire. Every tear that fell, that watered roots they couldn't see growing. Every moment you chose faith over fear was building something they're now forced to witness in all its terrifying glory. They're discovering that they weren't just spectators to your pain, they were addicted to it. Your struggle gave their lives meaning because it made them feel superior, important, needed. When you were down, they could play savior. When you were confused, they could pretend to be wise counselors. When you were broken, they could masquerade as whole. But now that you've found your center, their entire performance has lost its audience, and they're left staring at empty stages, wondering what role they're supposed to play now. The breakthrough that's currently reshaping your reality didn't announce itself with fanfare or social media declarations. It arrived like dawn after the longest night, quietly, inevitably, and with such power that it's reverberating through every connection you've ever had. The stability they once mocked has become the earthquake that's shaking their unstable foundations, and they're finally understanding that when you went silent, you weren't surrendering, you were strategizing. They're realizing they didn't just lose a person, they lost access to something sacred. You weren't just someone passing through their orbit, you were a divine assignment wrapped in human form, sent to test their character, to reveal what was hidden in their hearts, to offer them a chance at genuine growth. Can you see it now? The universe placed you in their path, not for them to diminish, but for them to recognize divinity when they encountered it. They failed that test so spectacularly that the consequences are now manifesting in ways they never imagined possible. The conscience they thought they'd successfully murdered is now resurrecting itself with supernatural vengeance. Every cruel word they spoke, every dismissive gesture they made, every moment they chose to kick you while you were down, it's all echoing in their minds like accusations from a courtroom they can't escape. The guilt they buried under mountains of justification and arrogance has clawed its way back to the surface, and it's demanding payment with interest compounded over time. Their nights have become haunted landscapes where your face appears in moments of vulnerability, contrasted against the cruelty they showed in return. The person they portrayed as unstable was actually demonstrating what authenticity looked like. The sensitivity they mocked was emotional intelligence they couldn't comprehend. The depth they found exhausting was spiritual wealth they were too impoverished to appreciate. Now they're forced to replay these scenes, knowing they had front-row seats to greatness and chose to throw stones instead of taking notes. Sleep eludes them because your peace has become their torment, and you don't even have to try. They prepared weapons for a war you never declared. They armed themselves for battles you refused to fight. Instead, you chose a path that confused and unnerved them more than any revenge plot could have. You chose to heal. You chose to grow. You chose to become everything they said you'd never be, and you did it without needing their permission, approval, or apology. Do you realize the power in that choice you made? The most devastating realization for controllers is discovering they've been erased through elevation rather than confrontation, and you accomplished this without breaking a sweat. You didn't argue with their narrative, you rewrote it through your actions. You didn't seek to destroy them, you became so magnificent that their negativity could no longer reach your altitude. Can you feel how untouchable you've become? This erasure through ascension is driving them to levels of madness they didn't know existed, because they finally understand that in the game of spiritual warfare, you weren't playing defense, you were playing chess while they were playing checkers. Your silence now speaks with the authority of thunder, and you don't even have to raise your voice. It announces that you've transcended their frequency of operation. It declares that you no longer require their validation, explanation, or acknowledgement. The indifference that characterizes your current attitude toward them is more devastating than any revenge fantasy they could have conjured, because indifference is the ultimate demonstration of power. You've made them irrelevant to your equation, and irrelevance is a death they never saw coming. The victim they thought they'd created has become the victor they never anticipated. The broken bird they enjoyed feeling superior to has grown wings that carry them to altitudes these earthbound souls can't even see, let alone reach. The person they bet against has become the evidence that their judgment was not just flawed, it was catastrophically, cosmically wrong. You are living proof that they don't know how to recognize greatness when it stands before them. They're not mourning you, chosen one. They're mourning the death of their own delusions. Looking at who you've become forces them to confront who they never had the courage to be. Your grace under pressure highlights their collapse under minor inconvenience. Your integrity in the furnace exposes their compromise in comfort. Your ability to forgive what they could never forget illuminates the microscopic size of their own spirits. The comparison isn't just unfavorable, it's devastating. These tears falling behind closed doors represent acknowledgement that they encountered something rare and chose to treat it like it was common. They had access to someone who could have elevated every aspect of their existence, and they used that access to attempt your demolition instead of their own construction. The magnitude of their miscalculation is revealing itself in real time, and the weight of that recognition is crushing them under its immense gravity. Your healing disrupted their entire theatrical production. They'd built elaborate identities around your brokenness, playing the helper, the wise advisor, the stable one, the concerned friend who tried so hard to save you. Your transformation left them without roles to perform and forced them to examine who they actually were when they weren't defining themselves in contrast to your struggles. The answer they discovered terrified them because beneath all those masks, they found nothing authentic, nothing real, nothing substantial enough to build a genuine identity upon. Every obstacle they placed in your path became a stepping stone to your elevation. Every door they slammed in your face led you to windows they didn't even know existed. Every weapon they formed against you became a tool that carved your character into something unshakable. The cosmic irony is breathtaking. Their betrayal became your breakthrough. Their abandonment taught you self-reliance. Their criticism developed your discernment. Their rejection redirected you toward your true purpose. They're discovering that curses spoken against the anointed operate under different laws than ordinary negative energy. The destructive words they directed toward you are now circling back with compound interest, and they're experiencing firsthand what it means to be on the receiving end of spiritual boomerangs. Opportunities slip through their fingers like water, relationships sour without explanation. Peace evades them, regardless of what external circumstances they attempt to control. They're learning that spiritual mathematics doesn't recognize earthly loopholes. The mouth they used to speak of destruction over your life has become the same mouth that can't stop talking about your comeback. Their obsession with your downfall has transformed into an obsession with your elevation, but now they're studying it from the outside, analyzing every aspect of your transformation like researchers trying to decode an alien technology. They're searching for formulas to replicate something that can only be forged through fire, seeking shortcuts to destinations that require the full journey to reach. Your name has become a trigger that activates their deepest insecurities and their most profound regrets. When others speak of you with admiration, physical reactions occur, flinching, tightening in the chest, sudden mood shifts they can't explain. When your resilience is praised in their presence, they're reminded not just of their own fragility, but of their role in trying to increase that fragility in you. You've become a living reminder of everything they're not, and everything they could have been if they'd chosen evolution over destruction. The divine protection surrounding you is now visible to everyone except them, or rather, it's visible to them, but they lack the spiritual vocabulary to articulate what they're witnessing. They sense something different about you, something untouchable, something that makes their old manipulation tactics bounce off you like bullets off Superman. This supernatural covering frustrates them because they remember when they had access to your emotional buttons, when they could predict and trigger your reactions. Your boundaries have evolved from suggestions into impenetrable fortresses that their manipulation can't scale, tunnel under, or fly over. The empathy they once exploited has matured into discernment that sees through their facades from miles away. The innocence they took advantage of has been replaced by wisdom that recognizes their patterns before they even fully form them in their own minds. You've become everything they feared most, someone who can see through them completely and remain utterly unmoved by their performances. The storm they orchestrated to destroy you became the hurricane that forged your unshakable foundation. The chaos they created around you taught you to find stillness within yourself that no external circumstance can disturb. The drama they tried to pull you into revealed the beauty and power of detachment. The fire they lit under your feet grew wings you didn't know you possessed, and now you soar at altitudes where their negativity can't survive the thin air. Your ascension represents more than personal transformation. It's a prophetic declaration that rewrites the rules of the game entirely. You're walking proof that the underestimated can become unstoppable, that the written off can author their own resurrections, that the broken can emerge not just healed but more beautiful than they ever were before the breaking. Your very existence challenges every limiting belief they hold about resilience, recovery, and the supernatural power of human spirit aligned with divine purpose. The tears they cry in solitude aren't just grief, they're recognition mixed with terror. They're finally seeing you for who you've always been, a chosen vessel carrying something sacred through this earthly realm. The light they tried to dim was never yours to begin with. It was on loan from the divine, and their attempts to extinguish it only made it burn with greater intensity. They touched something holy with unholy intentions, and are now experiencing the consequences of that spiritual violation. The universe orchestrated a masterpiece of justice through your journey, and the beautiful part is that no revenge on your part was ever necessary. Your elevation became the ultimate revelation. Your success speaks with more authority than any words of retaliation could ever possess. Your peace protests their chaos more effectively than any argument. Your joy judges their bitterness more thoroughly than any court of law could manage. They're learning that some decisions create permanent consequences, some bridges burn without the possibility of reconstruction, and some opportunities operate on a one-time only basis. The divine chance they had to be part of something beautiful has expired, and they're left holding the fragments of their own catastrophic choices. The regret consuming them isn't just about losing you, it's about recognizing that they'll never encounter another soul quite like yours, and they destroy their only chance to be elevated by your presence. As your story continues to be written in golden ink across the sky, their chapter in it has concluded with the finality of a book closing. They served their purpose as unwitting catalysts for your transformation, though they never understood that role while they were playing it so destructively. The tears behind their closed doors have become the soundtrack to your victory, the background music to your elevation, the confirmation that you were always destined for something greater than their limited vision could contain. Walk forward with the knowledge that every step you take is being watched by those who doubted your ability to take even one. Your continued ascension serves as their continued education in the catastrophic consequences of underestimating the anointed. Let their tears water the garden of your success, and remember that the most devastating response to those who tried to bury you is to bloom exactly where they planted you, growing so magnificently that your beauty becomes a constant reminder of their failure to recognize greatness when it stood before them. Behind those closed doors, something else is happening that goes beyond ordinary regret. They're experiencing what psychologists call cognitive dissonance on a spiritual level, the mental anguish that occurs when reality violently contradicts everything they believe to be true. The person they dismissed as too sensitive is now demonstrating emotional intelligence that makes their reactions look primitive. The one they labeled unstable has found a center so solid it makes their carefully constructed facades appear flimsy by comparison. The crying isn't just happening in bedrooms, it's happening in cars parked outside grocery stores, in bathroom stalls at work, in shower stalls where they think the running water will mask the sound of their breakdown. They're discovering that spiritual awakening in others can trigger spiritual crisis in those who witness it, especially when they play a role in attempting to prevent that awakening from occurring. What's particularly devastating for them is watching how effortlessly you navigate situations that would have triggered your old patterns. The conflicts that used to send you into emotional spirals now bounce off you like raindrops off a windshield. The manipulation tactics that once worked like clockwork now fall flat against your new level of awareness. They're witnessing someone who has learned to respond rather than react, and this shift in your behavioral patterns is unraveling their understanding of how power dynamics actually work. The energy you now carry into rooms changes the entire atmosphere, and they can feel it even when they're trying not to notice. Conversations become more authentic when you're present. Pretenses drop, fake personas become harder to maintain. Your very presence serves as a truth serum that makes others uncomfortable with their own deceptions. This isn't something you're doing intentionally, it's simply the natural result of someone who has learned to live in alignment with their authentic self. They're also discovering that the universe has a sophisticated accounting system, and the interest on their spiritual debts is compounding in ways they never anticipated. The lies they told about you are being exposed not through your words, but through your actions. The narrative they created is crumbling as people witness the stark contrast between who you actually are and who they claimed you were. Their credibility is evaporating like morning mist, and they can't figure out how to stop the process. The panic they're experiencing goes deeper than fear of exposure. It's the terror of irrelevance. They built their identity around being necessary to your story, whether as savior, advisor, or even adversary. Your transformation has rendered all these roles obsolete. You don't need saving, you've surpassed their advice, and you're too elevated to engage in adversarial dynamics. They're experiencing the existential crisis of characters who have been written out of a story they thought they were directing. Behind those closed doors, they're also grappling with a truth that's almost too painful to acknowledge. They're seeing glimpses of who they could have become if they had chosen growth over gossip, evolution over ego, collaboration over competition. Your journey is holding up a mirror that reflects not just who they are, but who they could have been if they had possessed the courage to walk the path of genuine transformation instead of settling for surface-level existence. The tears are also tears of recognition that they're witnessing something they can never replicate through imitation. Your transformation didn't come from following a formula or copying someone else's journey. It emerged from your willingness to face your shadows, integrate your pain, and surrender to a process that demanded everything from you. They're realizing that what they're witnessing isn't a lifestyle upgrade or a personality makeover. It's a complete metamorphosis that requires a level of commitment to truth they've never possessed. What's driving them to distraction is the realization that your success isn't dependent on their failure, but their failure is being highlighted by your success. You didn't need to diminish them to elevate yourself, but their attempts to diminish you have exposed their own limitations in stark relief. This dynamic is foreign to their understanding of power, which has always been based on zero-sum thinking, where someone's gain must equal someone else's loss. The massive thing that just happened isn't just your transformation, it's the revelation that transformation of this magnitude was always possible, and they chose to remain small while watching greatness unfold before their eyes. They're crying because they're finally understanding that they had front-row seats to a masterclass in human potential, and instead of taking notes they threw tomatoes. The crying intensifies when they realize that your forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you. You didn't forgive them because they deserved it, or because they asked for it. You forgave them because carrying resentment would have interfered with your own elevation. This understanding is perhaps the most painful realization of all. They were never important enough to you to hate. Your forgiveness wasn't a gift to them, it was a gift to yourself, and they were merely the beneficiaries of your commitment to your own peace. They're also discovering that the universe operates on principles they never understood. While they were focused on tearing you down through human means, divine forces were building you up through supernatural methods. Their earthly weapons were no match for heavenly armor. Their temporary tactics couldn't compete with eternal strategies. They brought knives to a spiritual gunfight and are now dealing with the consequences of that miscalculation. The massive shift that occurred didn't happen overnight, but its effects are being felt instantaneously. Like a dam bursting after years of pressure, the recognition of your true nature is flooding their consciousness all at once. They're seeing with new eyes not just who you've become, but who you've always been underneath the struggles they witnessed. The struggles weren't signs of weakness, they were signs of strength being forged under pressure. Behind those doors, they're also processing the uncomfortable truth that they confused your kindness for weakness, your empathy for naivety, your patience for passivity. Now they're watching someone who possesses all these qualities in even greater measure, but wrapped in a wisdom and strength that makes these traits formidable rather than vulnerable. Your kindness now comes with boundaries, your empathy now comes with discernment, your patience now comes with self-respect. The tears are also an acknowledgement that they witnessed a miracle and mistook it for a malfunction. Your ability to rise after being knocked down repeatedly wasn't a sign that you were unstable, it was evidence that you were unbreakable. Your capacity to love after being betrayed wasn't proof that you were naive, it was demonstration that your heart operated on a higher frequency than their understanding could reach. The massive event they're processing isn't just about you, it's about them. It's about what happens when people realize they had the opportunity to be part of something extraordinary and chose ordinariness instead. It's about the weight of understanding that they could have been elevated by your presence but chose to use that presence as a target for their insecurities instead. What's amplifying their anguish is the dawning realization that their attempts to break you actually revealed their own brokenness. Every criticism they lobbed at you was actually a confession of their own inadequacies. Every flaw they pointed out in you was a projection of what they couldn't face in themselves. Every limitation they tried to impose on you was evidence of the cage they'd built around their own potential. The mirror you held up to them through your transformation is reflecting back all the ways they've betrayed their own possibilities. Just when they thought you were finally defeated, just when they believed their narrative about you was solidifying into accepted truth, the universe unveiled its masterpiece. Your comeback didn't just happen, it happened with precision timing that maximized their shock and minimized their ability to respond. The divine choreography of your restoration is so perfectly orchestrated that it feels like cosmic theater, and they're realizing they were never the directors of this production, they were merely supporting characters in a story much larger than their understanding. The tears behind those doors carry the weight of opportunities that will never come again. They're mourning access to a frequency they'll never encounter again, wisdom they'll never receive again, grace they'll never experience again. Your presence in their lives was like a once-in-a-lifetime comet passing through their atmosphere, and instead of making wishes on your light, they threw stones at your brilliance. Now they watch from a distance as that same light illuminates others who had the wisdom to appreciate what they rejected. They're also processing the terrifying truth that your transformation has activated something in others around them. People who used to agree with their assessment of you are now questioning their own judgment. Friends who once joined in their criticism are now silent, uncomfortable, or openly changing their perspectives. Your elevation is creating a ripple effect that's exposing not just their poor judgment, but their influence over others' perceptions. The social alliances they built around shared negativity are crumbling as people witness the undeniable evidence of their miscalculation. Chosen one, anyone can listen to messages like these, but few will step into their true power. We are here to help you do just that. The weekly Chosen Ones group calls are now on Zoom, and this is the moment you've been waiting for your entire life. These meetings are literal power vortexes where destinies are forged, where Chosen Ones unite their consciousness to create something that cannot exist in isolation. This is where everything changes. This is where you step into your greatness. Every week a doorway opens, but only for those brave enough to step through it. Watcher-level members of the Obsidian Inner Order can experience these transformative sessions live, feeling the energy surge through your entire being. In our most recent gathering, participants were stunned by revelations about the Great Pyramids of Giza as sophisticated ancient power plants, and the shocking truth about Washington, D.C.'s layout perfectly aligning with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Star Chamber members receive unlimited access to the complete recordings archive, a treasure trove of wisdom that grows more valuable with each passing week. This is your defining moment. The knowledge, the connection, the power that flows through these calls cannot be found anywhere else. Join the Obsidian Inner Order now, link in the description. While the few remaining Star Chamber slots are still available, your presence is not just welcome, it's necessary. Will you answer the call that has been echoing through your soul? The time is now. The crying continues because they're finally grasping that what they're witnessing isn't luck, isn't timing, isn't circumstance. It's the natural result of choices made consistently over time. While they were choosing criticism, you were choosing growth. While they were choosing comfort, you were choosing challenges. While they were choosing to remain the same, you were choosing to become. The silence of your strength speaks volumes that their noise never could. The depth of your peace shouts truths their chaos never expressed. The width of your grace exposes the narrowness of their understanding. You are no longer who they said you were. You have become who you were always meant to be. And that transformation, chosen one, is why those pillowcases are soaked tonight while you walk through open heavens, crowned in victory they never saw coming.